Hey, Will Mansell from Local 10 Sports here, and you are listening to SportsOvertime.com, where the clock doesn't matter.
You're listening to Off the Deep End, where we discuss conspiracies, the people who love them, aliens, and a little spirituality. I'm your host, Emmy, and welcome to our show. Welcome to the show. This is Emmy on Off the Deep End on SportsOvertime.com. We have a great show today for you. Adey is here, and we're going to interview her. But before we do, a little bit of information about her. Adey is living in Illinois, Chicago specifically. She is a channeler, intuitive healer, and one interesting note about that is that Adey does channel Yeshua, otherwise known as Jesus Christ, as well as other personages that you may know from the Bible. Her healing often includes the use of angels, and she's an overall great person to get to know. So without further ado, Adey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Emmy. That was very sweet.
Thank
I much
you.
appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And Adey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Well, I don't know how far back you want me to take it, but...
You can go back as far as you want.
As far as I can? Okay. Yep. Well, I've sort of been connected to the spirit world and been aware of spirits and ghosts around me since I was a toddler. So that's where it all began, except at that time, I didn't understand, who I was seeing, what I was seeing, who was talking to me or anything. And as the years went by and I became more aware and more conditioned, if you want to say that, into this society, yeah. I started becoming afraid of these spirits and beings that were around me. I never knew at that time that who I was talking to were my spirit guides or Archangel Michael. Nothing to fear, really, when you have good guys around you. So anyway, fear settled into my teenage years, and I kind of stopped seeing them, but I felt them more. I always felt like there was something around me. I can feel their energy. Didn't start hearing them yet. So going into after high school, because it kind of stopped in the high school years, I became embedded in the 3D stuff, if you want to call it, being a normal teenager, having the boyfriends, the social life. So after high school, it all came back. I moved out. I grew up in San Diego. I moved out and moved to LA. I was actually born in Ethiopia. That's where it all began. So in LA, I lived with roommates, and it came back. I started seeing these spirits. It was spirits. It was human. It wasn't aliens or anything. And the fear came back. From LA. I lived in LA only for a couple of years. I moved to Chicago. And Chicago, it intensified more. There's a lot of older structures here, older buildings, a lot of history. Not that other places didn't have history, but each building that I moved into, I would see the ghosts that was there before. They come to me at night. They don't speak to me, but I started seeing them vividly, clearly, I could touch them. Wow. They would just appear. And so fear started going away because I realized if they were going to do anything to me, they would have done it by now. So curiosity kind of took over. And that was in my early 20s. I'm sort of telling you guys my age now.
It's okay. I'm 39, just in case you want to know. Actually, I'll be 39 on the 1st. So.
I love that you're so proud. I love it. I'm 36.
You're 36 years young.
Yes, and happy early birthday to you.
Thank you. Eclipse on my birthday.
God, that's amazing. Oh.
Okay, continue.
continue. Okay, so Chicago, I figured, okay, they're ghosts. I don't know what my spiritual connection is. At this point, I wasn't awake yet. I didn't know what my mission in life was or whatever. So more and more started happening, and I started seeing more and more. And then I started seeing alien beings, like spider beings. I saw like a ginormous spider on my wall, and that frightened me. It really did. I don't know if I saw any other alien beings at that time, like I do now. So I got interested in those universe shows like the Cosmos, Carl Sagan, Hawking's, I think. Yeah. So I started watching it. It led to that curiosity. I wanted to know more about the universe since I saw a giant spider-looking being in my room. I've always known like there's
might as well
got to be other life out there. It would be foolish for humanity to think that we are the only ones here in this massive, massive, vast universe. So as I started watching those documentaries, that led to YouTube, watching what you call the conspiracy theories, and people talking about their encounter with abductions and aliens. And that just sparked a little something in me. It started resonating with me because I was actually seeing certain things. And when I dream, this has also been since I was a little girl, it was always vivid. My dreams always felt like a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
And so never knew that could be a possible timeline or anyway, that's way out there. So these shows led me on to finding channelers on YouTube. And I saw Jim Charles. Actually, the first one I saw was Barbara Marciniak. I don't know if you're aware of her.
She channels the Pleiadians.
The Pleiadians, the P's. Yes. So her information is more about politics, what's happening here, not so much of like what's happening out there. It's just she focused on how these aliens are affecting our world. So that was a good bridge for me because I didn't want to completely like leave reality and go out there because then that will deter me. So that resonated with me. And then that led to finding Jim Charles, and he channeled Yeshua. When he channeled Yeshua, he had my complete attention. I mean, something in me resonated like, oh, God, I think I know this guy. Jesus just felt like home to me. So that led me to finding Ivan. I saw one of his videos. Actually, I saw Ivan before I saw Jim, but I never checked out his videos. It just didn't seem, just by looking at his video, it was just like some guy in like a shirt wearing like a work shirt, and then like there's bookcases. It just seemed boring to me. I don't want to say that.
Did you notice that he wears the same shirt often?
Yeah,
I think it's his thing. It's his brand.
No, I didn't know like the Ivan like I know now, but just by face value, I have to say I did judge him, and I was like, it doesn't look interesting to me, like those bookshelves, and it just looks boring. So after I saw Jim Charles, I started like, Jim introduced me not only to Yeshua, but to the reptilian race. He channeled them. And then there's the Lyrians. My mind was blown. So when I typed in certain aliens in the search box in YouTube, it's always Ivan that comes up like first. He's channeled so many different beings.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, fine, I'll check him out. So I don't remember. I think the first video I checked out of his was he channeled a giraffe being. And for some reason, I love giraffes so much. Maybe it's the long neck. I don't know. But I'm always mesmerized by them. And that was interesting. And then so that led me to checking out more and more and more of his videos. And the more I watched these guys, the more I realized something clicked up here. Like, I think I can do this. I'm supposed to do this. I could channel. But I've never tried meditating. I never thought that I could meditate.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried before, but my mind is so loud and it's so busy. I can never achieve the complete silence that you need for meditation.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't know that you can listen to certain tones that helps you meditate. So that I found out on YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. Alpha waves, and delta waves helped a lot.
Alpha and delta
helped me a lot. More alpha than delta, and theta too. So I tried meditating. I got complete silence. The thing is persistence. Like, I would try it for 5 minutes, and if it doesn't work, I would give up. But the more that I became patient and gave myself and my mind a chance to quiet down, the more I started experiencing certain things. But before I even go further into the meditation, I found out that Ivan started doing private sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all right, I totally resonated with him. And I was like, I have to book a session with this guy. I want to know who my guides are. I want to know, more about myself. Because I see people asking those questions on his webinar, and they're getting all these amazing, responses. So I did a private session with him in January sometime, like beginning of January.
Mm-hmm.
My guide came through, and he just confirmed everything, about my life, about my experiences, my past lives, my DNA, all of that, my biblical connections. And it just all made sense. So I started meditating more and more after that to connect with my guides, because I wanted to get this information on my own. And so the more I meditated, the more I got into that meditation space, the more I would feel and experience. Like, I've always felt energy, but not in my body. So I would feel their touch. I would feel them guiding my arms as we're clearing the chakras, and all of that started happening.
That's wonderful.
Because I was more aware, I wasn't afraid. I felt someone's arm guiding my arms to just sort of move around.
Wow.
Yeah, that was interesting. So my meditation went from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 15 to an hour. Now I can meditate for a couple of hours if I want to. It just takes time. And if you have the patience, anyone can do it. And so anyway, connected to my guides. Oh, the Jesus connection. Mm-hmm. I jumped on one of Ivan's webinars, and I used to suffer from sinus headaches, or I thought they were sinus headaches, but it would always be on the right, on the left side of my head, around my temporal lobe. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was sinus related or cluster headaches, migraine. I didn't know what. So I jumped on the webinar to see if I had an implant or what is going on with me, because doctors can't figure it out. And whoever he channeled said that there has been reptilians that have been trying to channel through me.
Wow.
And that made complete sense, because I felt a huge presence around me, but I've never been exposed to reptilians. I didn't know. I knew I had some connections. I mean, we all do, really.
Yes.
And then he said, also, Jesus comes around you a lot. He checks in on you. You guys have had many past lives together. He didn't give me too much details. I figured the rest out over time on my own. I started receiving messages. The first being that I channeled was a reptilian, and he went by the name Trevor. And the first time I ever channeled him, it was only for a couple of minutes, but it was so interesting because I started hearing them at that time. So in my meditation, I felt the movement in my body. I felt them entering him entering my body. And I was nervous, so I could hear him saying, calm down, breathe. He's directing me.
So he was making it easy for you.
Yes. And his voice at that time sounded not like his real voice. He took on a human voice. It was kind of funny. He sounded kind of like a wise guy. Have you ever seen those gangster movies?
Yeah, like Al Capone.
And yeah, like the Al Pacino movies. So he sounded like that. He's like, "Calm down, honey. Calm down. Breathe. Take it easy." And so that was my first ever channeling experience. And Ivan happened to have a webinar that same night. So I jumped on and asked to see if it was him, and he showed up. That was so funny. Ivan, didn't even expect it. He said that reptilians like to channel through specific people, so he's probably not going to come through. And boom, he showed up. He came through Ivan, and he talked to me, and he told me, yes, I did channel through you, but not as much as you wanted to go. Like, we didn't go that far. And so our relationship developed from that point on with this reptilian, and I channeled him over time. And that's where I am today.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
So now you're channeling, and there's very different, excuse me, I'm like out of words. There's a variety of different beings and entities that you do channel. You also do healings.
Yeah.
And what got you attracted to doing that type of work? Because I know you have a daytime job as well.
Yeah.
And you're also dedicating extra time of your own to this, to helping others.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I didn't even go into that. Yeah. My 3D life, my reality, I did go to school. I have a degree, and I have a bachelor's of science in health information administration. It sounds really boring. That's because it is. And this whole process sort of happened towards like middle to the end of my school year, like sophomore, junior, and then like senior year. It just intensified. And I was thinking like, gosh, is this like going to be a hobby, or is this, because I was so dead set on having a career and just doing the normal, what we call 9 to 5, and, a very dull life, as I would call it.
Right.
And then all this excitement came into my life, and now I'm like at a crossroads, like, what do I do? Do I continue to have a career, or do I do this? And it seems like I am being pushed more and more towards this direction. And like the career is going to be like maybe 5% of my life. In fact, my guides told me that I'm going to find abundance in healing. And healing was so interesting to me because that's something that I never knew I could do or considered. By the way, all of us can do that. It just depends on what you're open to. And so the healing thing I feel more comfortable with than channeling, because I am like very camera shy. It takes a lot for me to put myself on camera and channel. So I don't do webinars for that reason, even though I'm being pushed to do these webinars. I prefer the one-on-one thing. And healing is so perfect for me because I don't even have to open my mouth and talk. I just have to send out energy.
May I interject?
Yes.
I advise you to be less self-conscious because you're very beautiful and you're photogenic. Continue.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's not so much about that. I'm just like nervous with being bombarded with so much energy. When you're doing webinars, you have 5, 10, 15 people lined up to ask you questions, not all at once, but you're absorbing a lot of their energy, and that makes me nervous. I don't know if I can handle that. I prefer the one, I do private sessions for people. Mm-hmm. That I do like, and I'm getting used to that. I have a couple people that are regulars that I do private sessions for, and I love hearing them tell me the next day how it has helped them, how they know more about themselves now. I love helping people. That's like within my soul. I've always wanted to help people. That's why I went into the healthcare field, sort of. I'm not exactly in it now. So I just didn't know how, in what way that I was going to help people. And then now healing has also opened me up to a lot too, because now I'm helping people in that way, like helping them understand their past and release it and heal it. Even like just through conversation too. It's not always like sending out energy. I do talk to them afterwards too. So I enjoy it. It gives me fulfillment. And as I went along this process of like my awakening, I just fell more and more in love with humanity. Like I understand now. I understand why we are the way we are. And I also understand deep down, we're all loving beings. We really are. So I feel like I've just gotten like a new pair of eyes to look at this world. And I see just the beauty in everyone, even when they're being so nasty.
Yeah, you can look at it as them just playing out their roles.
Yes.
Or being a reflection of your thoughts.
Yes.
Since your thoughts create reality.
Exactly. And if something, this is what I learned that I didn't know before. If something that somebody does to me upsets me so much to a point where I lash out at them, I used to think it wasn't me, it's them. Mm-hmm. But really, whatever they've done has nothing to do with them. It has all to do with me because they are a reflection of me. They're a mirror of me. They're showing me something that I don't like about myself, or there's a conflict within myself.
Or the results of what you choose in your life.
Yeah.
Kind of playing themselves out in front of you.
Yeah. So all of this just led me to look more and more within and go. I went on like a self-discovery journey, like for a couple of months, January, February, March. I feel like 3 months or so. And just like learning more and more about myself. And I recommend that for everyone because that is what changed my views on a lot of things.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think as humanity in general, or at least, I'm not going to say all of humanity because there's different cultures that go about things differently, but at least my life and my surroundings, everything is about putting yourself second, helping everybody else, and you're basically the last person to get your attention. And really, you're the first person you got to take care of. How are you going to help others if you haven't helped yourself? How are you going to love others if you do not love yourself? How are you going to know somebody else, if you don't know yourself, So.
Yeah, you brought up a great point because that's another thing that was like so monumental to where I am today is that was the culture that I too was brought up in. We were taught, to always do for others and forget about yourself because they call it selfish. When you say yes to yourself and no to others, you're looked at as being selfish. And part of the conditioning of our society is to always look outwards, mm-hmm. to always find love somewhere else, instant gratification, shopping, being a consumer. They make you feel like, by having all these things that you're going to find happiness. And so we go out there and we buy the cars, we buy the gadgets, the electronics that we think are going to bring us happiness. But really that really resides in you. Happiness, you're only going to find it within yourself when you pay attention to yourself. So now we're becoming these over consumers and we're in debt and we have to work so much to pay off those debts. Now we become a slave.
Adey, let's pause for 1 second. There seems to be some reception issues on this side. Listeners, we're going to go to a short break. Thanks for listening to sportsovertime.com, listening to Off the Deep End. We will be back in a few minutes. Thank you. All right, and we're back on Off the Deep End with Adey. Adey, thank you for standing by. And can you please pick up where you left off?
So I was talking about looking outwards and the whole culture of consumerism Yes, it helps stimulate the economy. Okay, I understand that because that is our reality now. We are in a society where these things, these pieces of paper with pictures on them, are what like gets us goods and services, money. So I get it, but you do not have to be a slave to your things. That's what I realized. I was one of those too, over consumer, buying everything, thinking it's gonna I'm gonna find happiness. You go through a breakup with a boyfriend, and then what do you do the next day? If you don't eat a tub of ice cream, you're out there shopping. Retail therapy, they call it, right?
Go get a haircut.
Yes. Yeah. So we do all these things because we think that we're doing everything but dealing with ourselves and looking within, right? We're doing all these things that are looking outwards. It's not really fixing anything. And I found myself going deeper and deeper into depression. You know, I've had to like interrupt school so I can pay off some, credit cards. And it just wasn't healthy. So when I started looking within, religion is another thing. I'm not even going to touch that. But when I started looking within and dealing with my own emotions and really like getting to the bottom of things to see, why do I make these choices? And why do I react to certain situations in the way that I do that's affecting me? And, the answers just started rolling in. We all have these answers. All you have to do is really get to know yourself and have that relationship. And like you said, if you don't love yourself, how do you expect to love anybody else? So for the last 2 years, I want to say, I decided to remain single, get to know myself, and understand more about the choices that I've made before and how it has affected me. And doing that, getting to know myself, I realized what I'm destined for. I have a clear picture and a clear view of what I'm going to be doing. And that's healing and spiritual work. I'm not destined to be in an office from 9 to 5. I mean, that could be a part of my life, but it's not going to be like 90% of my life. I know that I will find fulfillment and abundance in doing what I do. I see a clear picture of that now. There's no mistake. So it's rewarding just knowing that I have that to look forward to.
Yeah, I really resonate with all that you're saying, especially going back where you mentioned you do not have to be a slave to your things, because as you were discussing, many of us look outward to find happiness when really, you just have to look within and just enjoy your company and enjoy the miraculous, infinite person that you are. But instead, most of us just look out to fill a void that we ourselves are not filling with our own company, with our without the knowledge of how wonderful we are. So we go and out and have those drinks with friends, or maybe overindulge, or buy a little too much, and then you feel guilty about it, and it's just a vicious cycle.
It is. And you know what? It's not all bad, because it's all like part of the experience here, part of the reason I discovered why we are here. And we all have different reasons, but we do share this commonality, is to really like go into a world that is bombarded with a lot of distractions, and for you to find yourself. That's part of it. Once you find yourself, you find your purpose. And we're all going to go through it at some point. If you don't go through it at some point in your lifetime, then you'll return and try to do the same thing, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And it just depends on where you are in your spirituality. You know, you don't have to be forced to go into spirituality. Sometimes it's not in your path. I just realized like everything is perfect in all order. You know, I really like stopped judging people. I came from a very judgmental background. Mm-hmm. I mean, society as a whole, that's what we do anyway. We judge each other. You know, it's part of the conditioning. I get it. But now, you know, when you become self-aware, you catch yourself and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. I can't believe I just judged her for that. You know, that's her path. And that brings a certain level of understanding and you grow. That's how you know you're growing spiritually.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
It's all beautiful.
Yeah, it's totally beautiful. And I totally resonate with what you're saying because there's been many times, of course, that, you know, especially in the in me just growing spiritually and just wanting others just to come along with me and just also seeing the world with a different pair of eyes, just wishing that people would wake up and you know, join the ride and you know, hey, you know, the stuff around us is not, you know, for you, it's not real, it's not helping, etc. But then as you evolve, or you know, as I evolved, I just kind of stepped back and realized, oh well, you know, they're living their reality and they're living their purpose the way that they planned it, and so everybody's perfect the way they are, wherever they are at whatever time. And that just helped me so much. That helped me judge less and love people more and enjoy life more, because there was that time, like you mentioned, that you were like really interested in learning about the conspiracy theories, and you know, I just felt kind of called to go down that information rabbit hole, and I just kind of stayed there, and then you know, you just kind of come out just a little jaded as well,
twisted.
Yeah, just all twisted, and so you know, after that and just deciding to become spiritual, you just learn, okay, bad, good, and then there's another point where you just kind of learn about, you know, just our own purpose and missions and realities and stuff and timelines, etc. And then comes neutrality, and for me, and then it becomes happiness. So now with all these wars and all these bad things going on, and who to vote for, and the Zika virus and stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, so you get to be kind of like an observer, and not completely unattached, but you know, unattached as far as it affecting you at a core level, and more accepting of, okay, this is the way things are because they're meant to be for a purpose, you know?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because as you were talking, my guides are here. Actually, a lot of the information I'm speaking, hey guides, are channeled from them. Like, this is information that, of course, we all have, but they kind of wake you up to it. Yeah. So they wanted me to talk about some of the negativity that goes on in this world and why it is there.
Oh, please.
So, and you touched on it a little bit too. Like, it's there because it needs to be. And I remember even like myself, I used to be so into politics. Humanitarianism is part of my like soul contract. I am here to help humanity. And so, but that, watching the news and watching all these awful things happen to children in Africa, in the Middle East, the conflict with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all the beheadings took a toll on me. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, maybe before my awakening, I just became more and more depressed. Like, in a way, it pushed me towards light, because I started thinking, like, this just can't be life. This can't be what life is about. There has to be more. I've always known there's an afterlife, always have, because I've connected to spirit. And so part of that negativity did push me towards this journey that I'm on. But now that I'm more aware, I realize that it's there to lower our vibration. Okay. It's not that we need to ignore what's going on in the world. What you can do is send love and light to it. But the details that they show you on the news, first of all news media is skewed to a degree. You're not getting the full picture. You're getting what they want you to see. Okay. And I know this because I came from another part of the world. I had my perspective on things. And then I come here and I'm watching the news and I see certain, figures being villainized, in the news media here. And we have a totally different perception of them outside of the U.S. So I thought that was interesting. But without going too much further into that, with the negativity, it's all about duality, okay? Mm-hmm. We can't just all be positive. It can't just be like lilies and rainbows and unicorns or whatever. We need a balance of energy. Otherwise, you're not learning anything. You're not expanding. So yes, some souls come into this world to experience some of that negativity. We have all gone through that in our past lives, okay? We've all gone through, your soul maybe wanted to figure out or discover war, what it's like to be a warrior, what it's like to be a victim. So yeah, we incarnate here and we go through these horrible, horrific lifetimes, but it's all a learning process, and having that understanding helped me a whole lot. So I do stay away from the news. I just don't want to lower my vibration. I know it's there. I know it exists. When I do my healing, I send love and light to children, to victims, to everyone who needs it. Mm-hmm. We're all doing it on some level, whether we're aware of it or not. So that, I want to say, it helps a lot to just be aware and try to understand why things exist. Don't just take what you see on the news for face value. Try to go a little bit further in your mind to see, like, why are they showing me this? Why is this happening? Instead of saying, oh my God, this world we live in, it sucks. I hate it. I want to end my life. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to bring children into this. Just having a spiritual understanding helps a lot in that matter.
I really like that, especially the last few things you said when you were talking about questioning yourself for the possibilities of bringing children into this earth, or not wanting to get married, or basically stopping doing things in your life because of the possibility of, the world, mm-hmm. getting worse, or basically because of fear.
Yeah,
and
fear.
A lot of people don't really put a lot of thought into this, but basically that is the precursor to mm-hmm. a lot of the bad things that are happening in this world. Fear leads to distrust and divisions and misunderstandings, and then you're stopping what you're doing, and then all of this accumulates in your life. It becomes stress, and then it manifests in your life as
takes
disease.
Over you. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite acronyms is, fear. What does fear stand for? False emotions appearing real. Okay.
Oh, I like that.
So what the media is doing is projecting all this fear
mm-hmm.
onto us. That's part of the conditioning, amongst other things like consumerism, TV shows, fairy tales, or whatever. So fear is part of that too. They want you to live in fear. It gets in the way of you knowing yourself.
I really like that a lot.
Thank you.
And while we're talking about you channeling your guides, is there any other messages that they have for us that they want us to know?
Yeah. So they're saying for us, for humanity, to be guided with your heart. Be more heart-centered. I know in our society they say, always listen to your head, not your heart.
Oh, yeah.
And you've heard me say this before, maybe.
That's more conditioning.
Exactly. They say that to you because the mind can be easily manipulated, but the heart cannot. You can't avoid what your heart wants, right? When your heart feels a certain way, let's say about someone, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to go through that emotion, let it play out. But your mind, you can manipulate it and say, oh, this isn't real. This isn't happening. That's part of our ego also. So they're saying to be more heart-centered and listen to your heart more. And that helps a lot with the conditioning that's happening in our reality. It really does. And that's what I've started doing, is speaking more from the heart. When you speak to someone from the heart, they're easily able to resonate with you, because then they'll see that it's not just BS. They know from the tone of your voice, from the manner of how you're speaking, that you're not trying to sell them anything, but you're merely just trying to express what's within you.
Oh, I like it. And because you're open, they could see you're open and you're not like hiding behind a facade or what you think, they should see, and dissecting the situation, what you should do versus what you shouldn't, etc. Because it's all coming from the heart. It's open.
Yes. And the heart is all accepting. A lot of the prejudice and the judgment that we have is all up here because we've been conditioned that way. The heart doesn't see things that way. Like children, babies, where they haven't been conditioned yet, they're all heart. They don't know that, this is a Black person, this is a Hispanic person, I'm not supposed to like them. They don't know that. They just see you on the soul level, and they connect with you
what feels
in that
good.
way. Yes.
Versus what might not feel good.
They don't see color, they just see you empathically, they sense your emotion, and that's why they say when the mother is stressed, the baby cries more, because the baby can sense things. So yeah, that's the message that they have, my guides, is to just be more heart-centered and pay attention to yourself and to your heart.
I really like that. Another interesting thing that I wanted to discuss, since you were talking about babies, is
yes.
It's like we, and when I say we, I'm just talking about like the world. We want them so much, but then when we have them, we want to put them into a little box and train them on how they should or shouldn't do. Children should be seen and not heard, and they're not like respected for the individual, the soul that they are. And that's not anybody's fault per se, because you don't know that you're doing it. It's just the world that we've grown up in. But the cool thing is that there's a lot of awareness about things, about these things now, and I see positivity and that this will change. And but when you're thinking about kids, you're thinking of a clean slate. They're not they are not burdened by the things that we are yet from our programming and structure. They are more heart-centered. So I'd say that in many ways they're closer to God than we are.
In a way, yes, that is true.
Yep.
They are more heart-centered. They haven't been conditioned yet. And I mean, I feel like it's getting better now, at least in certain areas of the world, because now there is a whole genre, I want to say, of science that is focused on children, on their psychology, because a lot of kids are starting to remember before all the conditioning takes place of past lives. We've read stories about that, so that sparked an interest in these scientists. So now they're studying children, which is amazing. That's like a step in the right direction. And part of the conditioning for these kids or these babies is us, the parents. Because we have been programmed and conditioned to raise your child in a certain way, leave your child at daycare because you have to work and pay the bills and provide a life. It's just part of the lifestyle, which is fine because these babies, these souls know what they're going into. It's part of their conditioning too, because they need to somehow find themselves, through all of this, but things are changing now. We're going into what we call a golden age. That actually, I think, existed around the Atlantis time, I believe, and a little bit of Egypt. So the souls that are incarnating now into this world, you're going to see a change in every generation. You already see it now. The contrast between us, our generation, and our parents, we are more aware now, right?
Yes.
And then our children are going to be even more aware because these souls that are coming in are incarnating with a specific purpose to recall certain information from their past and bring it here. We all come here with like a backpack of information that we're going to be able to recall and teach and try to awaken the rest. So it will take several generations for us to get there. But I want to say, and my guides are telling me this as well, in our lifetime, we are going to see a significant change in society. We are. And not all of it is negative, there might be some negative events. There might be a financial collapse, World War III, whatever, that is a possibility. But it doesn't mean that you need to focus on the negative outcome. The key is for us to focus on the positive outcome. Some negative events take place in order for something positive to come through, because we really need to be shaken up. One analogy I want to use is, for instance, when you're going through a lot in your life, you're depressed, you've lost everything. What do? You connect to spirit and you connect to God, right? Because now you have nothing else to, satisfy you or bring you like happiness. You've been stripped of everything. So it's sort of like the same thing. Like maybe the world needs to go through something massive like that in order for us to just like shake it off and wake up. But to put fear and darkness into it, like, oh, so many souls are going to die. When you put all your fear and darkness into it, then, you get what you ask for.
Exactly.
You got to think positive and say, okay, this event needs to take place so that, we have a better future. These souls that are dying off early is most likely, I'm not going to say 100%, is in their contract. They came here for that purpose. So it's all positive. You just try to have a positive outlook on all of these events so you don't lower your vibration.
Yeah, I totally resonate with all you're saying. And I'm just going to go rewind to you talking about the souls incarnating at this time and our generation versus other generations. I definitely resonate that each of our generations has its purpose.
Yeah.
So yes, we had the let's say pre-baby boomer age, and then the baby boomers came through, and then that resulted in basically your hippie generation, right? And that hippie generation opened many people's eyes to spirituality and to take a look at the things in the world and see injustice in things and other avenues of living outside of your family nuclear structure, your picket fences, etc. And then that set the bed. Even though I think there was like a little bit of a backtrack. A lot of those baby boomers end up getting pulled into corporate America, and they've also were made fun of, et cetera, and instead of being venerated for the monumental changes that they basically laid the groundwork for. So you have then Gen X or whatever they're calling it.
Generation Xers, yeah.
Yeah, where you have a more open-minded generation who's asking questions about things.
Yeah.
And then you have now your new generations, your children that are asking more questions, and they're to a degree defiant and changing the game per se. And in them changing the game, their parents are wondering, looking at things a different way.
Yeah, they're waking their parents up. Absolutely.
So I definitely see
yes.
positivity soon. And another thing is with the whole of potential of events that may come, I also see that as positive because, right now, can you say that we know each other? Right now, can you say that we fear each other? Probably yes. And can you say that we are free? Can you say that we're open? Can you say that you trust your neighbor? Not much,
Yeah,
So
that's true.
So I see a financial collapse. Yeah, I see that there's going to be some major discomfort in that, but then in that you could say that we could pull together and kind of group our resources together, see who can help, offer doctor service, who can give chaplain services, who can teach the kids math, whatever, math and English, etc. Basically coming together as a community and forging something positive. So the negative serves to a major degree. Yes, it's a push, but there's always going to be push and pull, and it just forces you to look at things and say, I don't really like what's going on in the world. Let me think of ways that we should change that.
Absolutely. When you mentioned doctors and physicians offering their services, I just remembered something, or maybe it's my guides reminding me, but I do have some friends that are physicians, and they are part of the Doctors Without Border organization. They go out there, they do work. And when we become more free, I bring this up because often they complain to me how restricted they are, whether it's financially or regulatory restrictions with other countries. They can't freely give and provide their services. I have some friends that are researchers, and funding, when you're doing research, funding is what controls the whole project. So if the government decides to stop funding, let's say on this, whatever, cancer treatment that they are working on, then that halts the research. And so there's a lot of these events that are happening. We're so close. If in fact we may have had cures for a lot of these diseases, but we're controlled by this system that doesn't exactly want it out there. They use the economy as an excuse as to why the research can no longer, continue. So by, like you said, the financial collapse, I see it helping in that manner, because now when that happens, everyone is going to be free to continue the research, providing, health services, helping in any way that you can. It will bring humanity together. I do see that outcome. And so focus on that, focus on a positive outcome, like I've said before. And I can even relate it to my life and day-to-day living. I used to stress about how I'm going to pay my bills, I funded my schooling, I paid for my bills and provided for myself while I was going through school, which was really hard. So the first couple of years of school, I used to worry oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? But the minute you stop stressing, the minute you just focus on a positive outcome, Spirit will take care of me. And guess what? That's what happens. I'm not going to worry about, 10 days from now, my rent is due and I don't have the money. Of course, It's not like magic. I do have a job, but somehow it just all works out. You just cannot put stress and fear into everything.
Yes,
it takes away from your experience here. And spiritually, you die a little when you're so focused on that negativity.
Yeah, the possibility of something bad happening or your credit score dropping. It's like your credit is like almost like matched to your worthiness. The other day I was thinking, and I'm going to say this real quick. The other day I was thinking, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen if I don't pay my bills, or if I am not able to catch up on these things, like, I go bankrupt or something like that. Okay, so I go bankrupt. So what?
Yeah.
How does that have anything to do with the person that I am?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I have less
That's
stuff.
beautiful.
They'll give me less stuff that I don't need.
The minute you let it go, I'm not saying that's going to happen. In some cases it doesn't, but I do that. Like, I'll say, what's the worst that can happen? I'm just not going to worry about it. And the minute you let it go, the solution comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
And it always works out. It has never not worked out for me. So, in some cases, you may have to call the creditor and say, listen, can you work with me? And 9 times out of 10, if you call them and you let them know what's going on, they will work with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, Adey, we have a few more minutes. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And we need to know how to contact you as well.
Okay, so I'll start with that. I do have a website that I can be contacted through. It is Adey Mariah, ADEYMARIAH.net. And there you will find a couple of my channeling videos, a little bit about myself, although I did more here than I did on my website, and also like the services I provide. So if you are interested, go to that website and contact me, and I would love to have a one-on-one with you. And final words, I just want to say, enjoy life. Really, truly, don't stress about the little things. And believe me, they're all little, okay? If you're thinking about it from like the spiritual point of view, it's all small stuff. Just enjoy yourself, go to nature, and get to know yourself.
Yep, I really resonate with that. And I resonate with you, Adey. Thank you
for having me.
Thank you for allowing us to interview you. It was a pleasure. And once again, we interviewed Adey, and her website is mariahshealing.net, spelled MARIAHS healing.net. Please get in touch with her. I highly recommend her. Thank you for listening to Off the Deep End on sportsovertime.com. Next time we will have Ivan Teller, and that'll be on Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. And on Friday we will have Jason Wedd from